Welcome back, people on Internet. My name is Tyler. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about my Megatron G1 rig. So first up, I'm going to go through the rig boxes and then the individual Megatron rig and then the grease pencil. Okay, let's get started. Alright, let's jump right in. So first up, we have our robot rig box here. And this you can move around, you can rotate it, and you can also scale it. And first up, we have just some visibility sliders. So for the FK controls, the icon controls, and then the individual controls, and all of these, all you need to do is just come over here to the custom properties. By default, this might be at the bottom of the selection, so it might be all the way down here, so you can just drag it up, or you can view them from this side menu here. If you go to items and then properties here, and you can just select individually, or you can hold and it will individually turn them on and off. So now going down to the IK controls, this rig has the basic COG control, the left and right arm controls, and then the left and right leg controls. And then coming down here to the individual controls, these are all just like the individual gun parts of the actual Megatron, and then like eye controls and the gun controls and so on and so forth. So you have all of these. We're going to go to the IK-FK switch here, and this is just for turning on the IK and FK function within the rig. So if you need to blend, let's say the arm is moving up here, right? And then you need to, you switch it back. You can hit this, switch it back, blend, and now you have FK control. So I'm just going to undo that. And then going down here, we have the transform arrow. Now, with this rig, as well as my Optimus Prime one, you have to make sure that some settings are turned on and some settings are turned off. So in this case, I have collected all of the settings that are needed to make the transformation work correctly. So first up, make sure that the shoulders are detached. So just drag this to 1, and then make sure all of these values, the gun barrel, the gun trigger, waist back, waist cubes, lower torso keys, make sure all of these are set to 0. And then you want to also turn off the robot limits. The robot limits is really just when you're posing him to make sure that the arms and legs and so on and so forth don't clip into the actual body. So you're going to turn those off. And now all you need to do is just drag this over and he will transform with a preset transformation that I made. Just get that all the way to 1. And now you have the gun form. And from this gun form, you can control him by the COG. And I chose this instead of using this smaller COG just because, or smaller control, because it led to some issues, and I'd much rather just use the COG controller as it is already there. And so you can attach more parents and so on and so forth, make it a little bit easier. And as you can see, both of those move. And so I'm just going to now redo that. Going to turn these back on. Okay, so now we're going to go to the weapon controls. So for these ones, I have preset bones. Let's see if I can. So here is one of them. This is just for the weapons to just sit, and so you don't have to manually pose them and place them. And then for the mace, they are down here at the fingertips. And they are down here because in the cartoon, usually when he pulls out the mace, the hands are put away inside of the actual arm. And so this way, it'll line up perfectly. I'll show you here in a second. So we're just going to attach the Energon mace to this bone here. And then all you need to do for this purposes, the thumbnails, or I can probably just pose this here. And as you can see, it perfectly sits there. And now you can control the mace, which I'll show you here in a bit. And then you could attach this both, like I said, to right and left. And then for the gun, all you need to do is just slide it over, And like I said, it's these bones here. You can just pose these around rather than when it is in this mode, you cannot use this bone as this bone is parented to this one. So you just use this one to pose around, scoot around if you have any adjustments you needed. And then, as I said, to the right, scoot in there, detach that. Okay, for our last section, this is just visibility for all the geometry. So you don't have to individually go into every piece of geometry to hide it. And this hides it for both the render and the viewport. Okay, so that's the first rig box. We're going to head into the second rig box now. So for this one, I'm using blend shapes for the mouth. And so each individual control controls the phonemes for the mouth, so like AEI, so on and so forth. And then at the bottom here, I have a couple of just face poses. So I'll demonstrate these. I'm going to just turn on viewport shading. And all you need to do is just scoot it to the right on the Z axis. So as you can see here, just a little smirk here. And then just kind of like a default shape, unhappy Megatron. And then got a little smile in here. And for all of these, you can blend them together. They don't have to all just be individually turned on. You can literally, if you wanted to, I do not recommend this, but you can turn on like all of them and then it'll kind of break it. But if you would like to, you can do that. I'm going to undo that. And then we have like smile here a little bit. And then like evil laugh if you need that. And then, like I said, for all of these are all of the phoneme shapes for lip sync. Okay, so now we're just going to jump into the individual components of the rig. Okay, so let's jump into the individual parts. So first up, we got the head, pretty basic. Then we got some eyebrow movement here. In the cartoon, he doesn't really move his eyebrows all that much, but figured just put a little bit of movement in there for the sake of the animator. Then we got the eyes here. You can rotate these a little bit. And then I decided not to put a scaling factor or a scaling limit on these eyes because when you scale past the limit, it like flips it and just kind of freaks out. So I figured just leave it open to the discretion of the animator. And then going down here, we have the head base, which you can scoot down. And then scoot these over for the transformation. Let's get that back up. And we're just going to go down the torso here. So we have the upper torso. You can bend this just a tad. And then the lower torso has a little bit of movement here. And the weight painting is only on the bottom torso, as if I were to put it on the top one, in the transformation, I have the lower torso go into the upper torso, and if there were weight painting, it would break it. So I only have weight painting on this bottom section here, and I was able to work out so I can have the good transformation, also just a tad bit of weight painting. And then going down here, we have a little bit of movement on the waist here. And then the COG control, which will only work if your IK legs are on. So let me just turn that on. As you can see, these are working correctly. Turn those back off. And we're going to go to the legs here. Get a little action here, movement. So the knees. And then the feet here. And then the back thrusters. Let's get these around a little bit. Okay, so now we'll talk about the individual, or we'll talk about the arms. Get a little action here. And then the gun hammer, I decided not to put any rotation limiters on this, as in gun form, I have it, the hammer already down, so it is ready to fire. And with limits, it kind of freaks out with that, so just have discretion with that. And the arms here, rotate them. And then we have the elbow. There's a little bit of extra elbow movement, just in case you have this in extreme pose, and then you need to just do a little bit of readjusting. Just be careful though, because it will clip if you go too far. And then for the arm, you can rotate a little bit side to side. Then we go to the hand here, a little rotation here, and then it can also scoot into the arm so that the Energon axe can go and sit there correctly. And then for the fingers, you have it to where the first finger will automatically rotate these individual fingers, and then you can build upon the rotation for adjustments if needed by just rotating them. And then for the thumb here, you can rotate this all around, and then scoot it in, rotate, so on and so forth. Clear that out. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the individual parts. So we have the gun here, pretty simple. And we have just a little bit of button action. And then the barrel can move just a tad and rotate a little bit too if you want a little bit of movement there. And then going back to the literal back of Megatron, we got a little bit of movement here. The gun trigger, when it's in gun form, in a robot form, can move a little bit. And then you can scoot this around if you want. And then these also move around. And since this is in robot form limits, they will not move too much. And if you want them to move more, you can always switch on the robot or the gun limit, basically, for these if you want. And these kind of pivot. And then this also moves up and down just a tad. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the mace. So you have the base. You can pose this in case you need a little bit more movement. Oops, I'm gonna go back. Okay, so the setup here is you have 4 points of movement. If you use the top one, it will detach the chain, so if you need to have the chain fly off or whatnot, you can do that. And then the really nice thing is that this automatically extends, and then you can move these bones around and it will continue to create. And then if you need to actually pose the mace ball, you can do that. Just be careful with the extremities as it will not fully connect to that. But yeah, so you can scoot this all around. And then the second one does scoot this a little bit over, so might be a little bit careful with that. Try to adjust that a little bit. And then lastly, we have the individual IK. These are just like the IK knees and elbows. These just help with adjusting for rotations with the foot and the arm. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the grease pencil explanation. So grease pencil is pretty self-explanatory. You have a camera set up, and the grease pencil, from the camera's point of view, will draw the outline on the actual character. And in this case, it's set up to be black, but in the viewport shading, it's blue. As you can see here, this is what it looks like. And from an off angle, from outside the camera, it's going to look weird, but if you look in the actual camera, it looks pretty good. And as you can see, just scooting around, you can do all this kind of stuff. And going down to the grease pencil, if you want to adjust things are to your liking, like if the camera for the grease pencil is too close, you can always just change the line thickness so it's not super thick. As it is distance based, and you can always keyframe this as well, which is super nice. And then you can change all kinds of settings in here, and then I already have it to where the lines there's a little bit of noise, so it's not perfectly straight, and then also like a dot dash, just so it gives it more of that handmade feel to it a little bit. And pretty basic. And then also if you want to adjust things with the actual stroke and then the color as well, you can adjust those there. And that's about it for that. And then lastly, just the outliner. If you are animating, I typically prefer to turn the grease pencil off. If you just hide it, it will still be active and it will cause your scene to slow down drastically. So I like to just exclude it from the view layer, and it turns it off fully, and so you don't have to worry about that. And so I have just the rig itself in a collection, the actual geometry in a collection, and then go about here, the grease pencil outline, and then also I have this do not touch folder. This is basically just all of the rig text and then rig objects within the scene that all of the rig bones are referencing. So typically just leave that off, don't worry about it. And yeah, that is this rig here. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys on the next video.